We have received a number of comments about doing an off-cycle BNR announcement, particularly in relation to Nadu's performance at the Pro Tour, coupled with the timing of the upcoming Modern RCQ season, which kicks off in about 2 weeks-ish. But also in relation to Grief and Legacy and the red-white energy deck in Historic on Arena. Now, first, I want to be very clear. We are not changing our date or issuing any kind of off-cycle ban. Our announced date for the next BNR is August 26th, and we firmly believe that sticking to our announced date and not surprising people with random dates is the best for Magic and the best for players.
I need to know if you actually are happy with that statement. The announcement that was just made that we are sticking to another month of Nadu, Grief, Bowmasters, the One Ring, all that good stuff in Modern, and we're sticking to what is probably going to be, at this point, the death of the Legacy format, considering the metagame percentages of what's going on in that format. And I mean, Pioneer continuing to be the combo soup that it is. I don't really have great context for what's going on in like Historic and Timeless and all that stuff, but for the constructed formats that exist both in paper and in digital, I think it's clear to see that the management of these formats are kind of going to the wayside here. With Modern RCQ season pretty much about to start here, or starting based on when you're watching this video, we do know that the season itself goes over like 10 plus weeks. So there is going to be a portion of the season where it kind of feels dead. We have these formats that we know are probably going to get banned out. A lot of attendance is going to be low in numbers. Local game stores are affected by this as well. But I think this whole discussion around banning dates and everything is a nuanced one. There's a lot of good and bad to come out of a stance like this. And that's what I wanted to break down today. I wanted to take this from a community perspective, break down what's further brought in the video down the line, which I'm going to link down below. I highly recommend you watch the whole thing from the horse's mouth, get all the information there, because it is really important for context. So go watch that, then come back to this one. And really, we're going to try and understand not only what the combos themselves are in the metagames, I'm going to try and break down why they're broken. Provide some context for those of you that may be more casual constructed players, maybe play some more Commander, or just don't have your eggs in a basket depending on the format itself. So if you want to see more discussions like this, leave a like on the video. Let me know what you want to hear more of in the comment section down below. And of course, give me your thoughts on the Modern banned and restricted lack of announcement, I should say, currently. Do you feel like Nadu is busted right now? Do you feel like you're playing a deck that is busting Nadu's eggs wide open? Because I mean, hey, it has never been a better time to be playing Modern Mill. But hey, my biases aside, let's hop right into just kind of a small tidbit of what it means from the community. I think many of you already know that this isn't a popular opinion. Nadu has been relatively taking over the Modern metagame for a while, but it does feel like from a certain perspective that there is a level of diversity. When combos at the top, generally speaking, if the combo is highly disruptible, and I'm taking this from a pauper player's perspective, generally the mid-range decks can survive, although the mid-range decks tend to be really done out by like top decking combos, right? Like generally speaking, the combo decks can beat the kind of mid-range decks, but if they're highly interactable in the sense of like something like Nadu, then you might be able to get through with a little bit of land destruction, with a little bit of interaction on your end. It's possible, but I mean, that also lends to the power of other things going on in the format. It's a reason why Tron has become a person style deck. It's a reason why Ruby Storm is still at the top of the roost, how Grief scam decks can still get there, because double scamming on turn 1 is absolutely still a busted play pattern. And then when you combine that with Necro Dominance and the One Ring, everything just really falls apart when you think about it from a metagame perspective. So there's a lot going on in Modern right now. The percentages on websites may not fully paint the full picture, but we're going to explore that. And when it comes to Legacy, we see one deck essentially take a third to potentially more than that of a percentage of the metagame itself. One deck is essentially being played over any other deck by the vast majority, and we'll also break down why. And in Pioneer, we've been seeing ever since kind of big tournaments, the Pro Tour, just bringing up just real big brews in the Vampire deck, Amalia still being a menace of the format for a very long time. We're gonna break it all down here and then go into some of the reasonings as to why this is a problem. So let's hop into it from a quick combo explainer. The Pioneer metagame, as you can very much see, has been ruled by some of the more common stalwarts of it, right? You got the Hidden Strains deck, Azorius combo, Nykthos ramp. I mean, they haven't been able to put a nail on this deck for a very long time. Nykthos Shrine to Nyx is just it's just a card that is very hard to deal with, right? Izzet Phoenix has been a really good deck in the format for a very long time, but the more recent additions of Rakdos Vampires and Amalia combo are what really rule the top of the roost here. Now, Mardu Vampires generally works around two big cards. I should mention the third one, Fable of the Mirror Breaker, is actually one of the most insane red enchantments printed of all time, especially in terms of a card that provides value in a mid-range mirror, value to bring yourself back into the game, but I digress. The card is just generically good. The Mardu Vampires deck works around something like Sorin, Imperious Bloodlord, and it's really the -3 here. So the -3 reads, you may put a vampire card from your hand onto the battlefield. So it's kind of like a sneak attack. Definitely not like something that's instant speed. You know, it's coming on a planeswalker. So again, that -3, you cheat out something like Vein Ripper. So instead of 6, you pay the low cost of 3, you get a Planeswalker and a Vein Ripper for a 6/5 with flying. The ward is sacrifice a creature, and whenever a creature dies, target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So the problem is that if you are creatureless on board, you can't kill this. You have to sacrifice a creature. I believe. Maybe you might be able to get around this. I might just be getting that wrong. Please let me know in the comment section down below. Regardless, there's a big cost. You lose your own creature to kill this creature, right? So you're losing 2 cards. You're losing the removal spell that you're spending on this, and then you're losing the creature that you then have to pay for as part of the ward cost. Then whenever a creature dies, target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So that is any creature, not just the creature that you're sacrificing, the creatures that are around Vein Ripper, the other creatures that you have that you are beyond sacrificing. When anything dies, your opponent gains 2 life and you lose 2, you get drained for 2. The creature's insane. It's got evasion. It comes down on turn 3. This is a very hard threat to actually deal with, especially in terms of damage numbers for red that generally deals with damage-based removal, especially for something like white and black and everything. Like, the amount of advantage that your opponent gains from just having something like that out is insane. So that's why something like Vampires is around. Amalia combo is a little bit simpler. So Amalia Benavides Aguirre, I could be, again, completely butchering that name. Ward 3, whenever you gain life, Amalia explores, then destroys all other creatures if its power is exactly equal to 20. So whenever you gain life, you explore. So exploring is you reveal the top card of your library, put that card in your hand if it's a land. Otherwise, you put a 1/1 counter on this creature. Then you put the card, then put that card back or put it into your graveyard. So if you have, if you essentially have a way to gain life and put infinitely here, then you're going to be able to explore infinitely. If you have a non-land card on top, then you're going to be able to infinitely put amount of counters onto Amalia. Now necessarily it stops itself, because when it hits 20, it destroys all other creatures. So it kind of doesn't go infinite to that sense, but it has a way to kind of stop the loop. So Wild Growth Walker is the combo piece here. So whenever a creature you control explores, like Amalia, you put a 1/1 counter on Wild Growth Walker and you gain 3 life. So whenever Amalia explores, says that whenever you gain life, you explore, and Wild Growth Walker says whenever you explore, you gain life. I think it's pretty easy to see how that works. The thing is, neither of them actually trigger life. So what happens is you play something like Lunarch Veteran. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. So play that on 1, you play Amalia on 2, then you play Wild Growth Walker, you go infinite, blah, 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 blah. You create a bunch of counters, you destroy all of the creatures, and then you can generally swing in with Amalia with a giant 20/20 attacker there. But when it comes to something like Wild Growth Walker, generally the deck plays a lot of protection as well. So you can give your creatures indestructible, and then you can play around certain pieces of removal. Then you have multiple threats if your opponent is able to deal with 1. Regardless of what it is, you explore, you go at it, you create an infinite. I mean, you obviously have to pick it at some point, but generally speaking, the combo goes off. It does a lot. It's got tutors. It works around this specifically. It destroys all other creatures. So it's great. I mean, it gets around the Vein Ripper situation, because Vein Ripper doesn't get targeted. The ward ability doesn't matter. It destroys it. That is great. That is Pioneer. When it comes to something like Modern, it's a little bit different here. The Modern metagame is a bit more spread out. We don't see like 20% and 19%. We don't see about like 50% of the metagame being like some type of value combo. Bant Nadu is definitely at the top at around like kind of 13 to 14%. Jeskai Control is a way to deal with this stuff because the energy package is actually surprisingly insane. But let's be honest here, Jeskai Control is like Modern Horizons 2 deck. It's got the One Ring in there as well. Boros Energy, a more recent addition, playing things like Ampraptor and Flage out of Modern Horizons 3. Mono Black mid-range is just a culmination of Modern Horizons through the One Ring and Modern Horizons 3. Goryo's Vengeance, a bit of a combo deck that comes back. Something like Living End, where decks aren't necessarily dealing with the graveyard, so they are kind of two ships passing in the night and things being hyper aggro, which is why the Tron deck is turned into a prison deck. You have Ruby Storm, Mardu Energy, playing black for Orcish Bowmasters, Living End playing a reanimation strategy, Eldrazi Tron essentially playing like a close to Tron package with some prison elements, but with like a more proactive plan. Again, it feels like everyone is either playing black for the Grief package or Orcish Bowmasters, or they're playing the One Ring, or they're playing some type of degenerate combo. That is where Modern is at right now. Again, that is a great environment for Modern Mill, by the way, so just a heads up to everyone paying attention here. But Bant Nadu, the way this deck goes off is it cycles around Nadu Wing Wisdom, and it says whenever a creature, so creatures you control, all creatures you control have, whenever a creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it on the battlefield untapped, by the way. Otherwise you put it in your hand. This ability only triggers twice each turn. The problem is the twice each turn is with every creature. It is not just Nadu. So what you do is you play Shuko, you can get this card out with Urza Saga. Urza Saga cheats it out, you quit for 0. That is a way to target each and every creature. How do you get more creatures? You play Springheart Nantuko that says whenever a land enters the battlefield then you control, you create a 1/1 green insect token. You can imagine with Nadu, when you start targeting things, you reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land, put it into play untapped. That land then triggers in Springheart Nantuko. You create another green insect token, and then you get another target that you can hit twice. Essentially, you're telling me that pretty much 1 in every 2 to 3 cards in the top of your deck isn't a land. You're lying to yourself. There's plenty of ways to go off here. This deck is absolutely insane, and I'm pretty sure you can find a way to win this game by drawing out your whole deck and having a bunch of untapped mana. Be for real, folks. Let's get creative here. This deck is absolutely insane. The other deck that I want to highlight here is the Grief Scam package here. So this is mono black. This is essentially, in my opinion, the worst parts about Modern. This deck exemplifies the worst parts of Modern to me. In my own bias, for those of you that watch the channel, I hate hand disruption. I hate that play pattern, but I do not want it banned. I understand why Thoughtseize and Inquisition of Kozilek need to exist, but I'm still allowed to hate that play pattern, okay? I genuinely, like, okay, you know what? I'm not gonna get into the whole argument of what's worse, getting your hand Thoughtseize or getting milled. Some of y'all actually believe milled. I think you're losers. Shieldred the Apocalypse, right? Absolutely busted top end card. Orcish Bowmaster is one of the most broken black cards printed in Magic's history. Alongside Grief, another one of the most broken black cards ever printed in Magic's history. Necro Dominance doing a good job of copying one of the most broken cards ever printed. One of the top 5 most broken black cards in Magic's history. Copying that, and then you have that alongside the One Ring. This is a collection of busted black Magic cards. Lands, go. That's it. This is a registration of some of the most busted cards in Magic's history. Register it with lands and go. What is going on here? Who made this? Who made this collect? I don't know. You know what? I hate the mono black decks. The One Ring is another kind of discussion around whether or not it should be banned. So many people, I recently did a video about whether or not this should be restricted. That was a popular opinion going around on Twitter. And the One Ring itself, I mean, it does a lot, right? It's this value engine that you can replace on the turn that it comes down. It gives you protection from everything. So it's kind of like a soft U phase out and everything. Like, the card does everything, right? Your opponent could exile the One Ring and it still has its effect. Fortunately enough, though, it actually has to resolve and enter the battlefield. So if you counter it, you do get around it. It's one of the many reasons why mainboard Spell Piercers are really good in the blue decks right now. But One Ring is absolutely insane. And this is kind of why the Eldrazi Tron decks, or the Eldrazi decks in general, have turned into One Ring decks. We aren't playing Karn Liberated anymore. In a world where Tron does not play Karn Liberated anymore, you're playing Karn the Great Creator with 3 mainboard One Rings and a way to tutor out the 4th from your sideboard. You're playing Chalice of the Voids. You are playing Trinispheres. Like, you're doing all that good stuff. Actually, this deck I don't believe is playing Chalice of the Voids, but I believe there were lists out there playing Chalices, or that might just be the Eldrazi Tron decks. But regardless, Trinisphere to stop the combo decks, slow everyone down. You can imagine how a deck like this can actually, really do well in a format like this, having answers like this, stopping artifact activations, which stops, by the way, Shuko in terms of the Karn the Great Creator, and then you have the Transfer to stop the Ruby Storm decks. You can imagine how something like this is absolutely insane. But really, at the end of the day, in my opinion, whether or not Nadu gets banned, the card that needs to get banned is Grief. Let's be completely honest here. Comment down below, comment Grief down below if you think Grief needs to get banned, because this card is absolutely ridiculous. This is one of the most poorly designed cards I've ever seen. Who didn't think that if you reanimated this card, getting double Grief wasn't good? Well, I have been getting double Grief for so long, it makes me want to quit Magic. This card is so bad. I hate this card. If you think this card should be legal right now in current modern, or should have been for a very long time, you objectively don't know what you're talking about. You like objectively, I will fight you to the end of the day. This card sucks. Getting double Grief is not a good play pattern. Playing it and doing your own thing to win tournaments, fine. I don't blame you. Play the best deck. But if you genuinely do not believe Grief needs to get banned, you're wrong. I'm sorry, you're wrong. You're wrong. Fight me in the comments. Give me a reason why Grief shouldn't get banned alongside or before Nadu. Grief should have been banned for a very long time. This card is dumb, right? Losing your two best cards in your opening hand and then having to deal with a 3-2 menacing attacker, sometimes a 4-3 menacing attacker, is absolutely insane. It's ridiculous. No one should have to. This card doesn't even easily get fatal pushed. It gets solituded, but then your opponent has lost 2 cards plus 2 more cards to Solitude and then pitch a card to the Solitude. This card is insane. Absolutely not. Ban it right now. When it comes to Legacy, things are a bit more clear cut. You can notice how percentage wise 30% of the metagame is being taken up by Reanimator, Scaminator, and is based around one thing. It's not Reanimator. They're not calling it right, because Reanimator classically plays Force of Will. It plays some free black spells to reanimate things like Gristlebrand to win the game, and then Atraxa to win the game. Like it does all that good stuff, right? Right now, for 30% of the metagame, it is just Scaminator. It is literally the Grief Scam deck, but in its best form. It does not play red for Ragavan. It does not play red for mid-range pieces. It does not play red for anything. It plays blue because you now get to play the best packages in Legacy. You get to play the blue package that plays Brainstorm, Daze, and Force of Will. Great. You get free counter spells, you get great card draw and filtering, and just great value. You then play black for Grief. Grief, Reanimate, and Entomb. You get to Entomb Atraxas if you want to win the game. You get to Grief and Reanimate. Very simply, you get to also reanimate Troll of Khazad-dûms as well, and you then get to protect that on top of that with Force of Wills. The most egregious card in this list, in my opinion, is actually Psychic Frog. Psychic Frog shouldn't be banned, but it's one of the reasons why this deck works, because this card not only pitches to Force of Will, it also pitches to Grief. It does everything, and it also enables both of those cards. Exile 3 cards from your graveyard. You're going to be filling your graveyard pretty well. This thing gains flying, and then when it deals combat damage to a player or a planeswalker, you draw cards, you gain more cards, and then you discard a card, which is a great way to put cards into your graveyard to then reanimate. Hello? Look, this card shouldn't be banned. I get it. Psychic Frog, great card, great enabler. It is one of the best inclusions in this deck because it pitches to Force, it pitches to Grief. Grief has been a problem in Legacy for a very long time. A lot of the content creators will tell you that as well. A lot of the players of Legacy will tell you that as well. It is a very hard deck to deal with because it plays the best threats right now. It plays the best counterspells right now, and it's just very hard to deal with. Now, that is where we are at with our formats. And generally speaking, I think the only way to really solve this is banning, right? You need to ban Grief out of Legacy. You need to ban Grief out of Modern. You need to ban Grief out of every single format this card is legal in. Just shut it down. Forget selling this card. You've sold your Modern Horizons 2 packs. Yes, you have them in Modern Horizons 3, I believe, as promos, but we're done. We're done with this card. Keep it in Commander, and that's it. Just don't let anybody else play with it. I mean, Golgari Guy puts it pretty well, just kind of summarizing everything I talked about here. Honestly, I don't know how Wizards Magic is doing, what they're doing managing its competitive formats. Pioneer is dominated by Vampires and Amalia. Nadu is clearly banned in Modern, or should be, alongside the One Ring and Grief. A Legacy Reanimator with Griefs is like 30% of the meta, and the Modern RCQ season is approaching. We need bans. We need them soon, or before people stop playing these formats. And this was actually done on July 23rd, and then we had the announcement about 19 hours ago, yesterday on the 24th. Today's the 25th. Do I have my dates wrong? Regardless. So this is the video that you kind of watched in the beginning. I'm going to link that tweet below with the kind of clip from Magic the Gathering. But Corbin highlights one of the things that was mentioned here. This is an incredibly, this is actually reasonably stated position in regards to not changing the dates. Upending consumer trust in your schedule has long-reaching consequences. For better or for worse, a rough RCQ season won't be contentious 3 years from now, but the expectation of emergency bans following social media pressure follows you. And I think this is correct. We can see this actually in a similar reasoning from the Pauper format panel and how they didn't want to pre-ban Cranial Ram. They don't want to do that necessarily, but they ultimately made that decision to not ruin the two biggest tournaments that happen in Pauper. Now, Pauper is a bit of an interesting choice just because, or a special case where there aren't, like, it's a cult following. It's not like it's as big as Modern or as big as Legacy. So you need to really curate the type of tournaments that are happening. You need to make sure people are going to these tournaments and showing face to a format that they love. So they need to curate it a bit more. If they couldn't, like, they don't need to necessarily do that if it was as big as Modern and Legacy. And that's what they're doing here. They are going with actually what I think is a relatively good reason to not ban anything right now. You have set a date, you follow through with it from a corporate perspective, people can trust you with that, which is fine. But they also mentioned in the video that they want to change the way they look at bannings. Maybe not put it around set releases, but also work around competitive seasons, big events, and things like that, which I think is a good thing to look at and move forward. Right now, unfortunately, we will have to suffer. The 2024 RCQ season will have to suffer. And let's be honest here, Modern is not dying anytime soon. Right? We have the Marvel set coming out next year. Universes Beyond is skyrocketing Magic as a IP, introducing new IPs, and just becoming the Fortnite-ification of the game. The game is succeeding in so many ways, and that is because the casuals are joining. You see more and more people, generally speaking, playing Commander, playing the game, playing Constructed from there, and just enjoying the game that we all know and love. It's not dying anytime soon. So an RCQ season, a failed Modern RCQ season won't kill the game. It'll just kill excitement for a little bit. We'll have to gain consumer trust again, whatever. But I think ultimately speaking, this probably is a net like positive decision if you really think about it. Yes, Modern is going to suffer. I will wholeheartedly agree. If I could choose, I would love it if something got banned this week, last Monday, today. I hope today they make that change, but they will not. But I think here the reasoning for this is perfectly sound. Upending consumer trust, because down the line people will have that expectation. They're like, oh, they did it here. Why can't they do it now? Why can't they ban something last minute now? Because they did it here. And that's why the Pauper format panel was very scared to do that pre-ban on Cranial Ram. They didn't want to set a precedent. And Gavin Verhey said that specifically in his article. He said that specifically in his video, or don't quote me on that. He said it amongst one of the two. He did not want to create the precedent. And that is what's going on here. They want to stick to the schedule that they set to not further the community distrust. I mean, like, I think at this point, the community, they're feeling the memes here because they know they're stuck with it. Brian from Broad Roll says, come feel something with them. Splitter Twin. Yo, comments down below. Unbanned Twin. Let me go. Let's go. Comment down below. Unbanned Twin. Yo, playing Twin. And what's beautiful about this is that he's playing against Legacy Scaminator. He's playing against Scaminator, right? Like, as far as I'm aware, I didn't specifically recall if that deck was playing Orcish Bowmasters, because that's where that Orc army is coming from. But I'm assuming they're playing Scaminator here, or it's either that or Dimir Scam. It's either that or Dimir Scam, regardless of playing a Scam deck with the Frog, Force of Will, and Scam. And they're playing Splinter Twin against it. Unbanned Twin in Modern when let's feel something, beating the Black Grief decks, come on. It's you know, unbanned Twin, ban Grief. That would be crazy. Call it down below in the comment section. Are we unbanning Twin? This would single-handedly go down as the single craziest BNR announcement if they unban Twin in Modern and ban Grief, Nadu, everything. That would be absolutely insane. They wouldn't do it. They would not do it. But I think, you know, one of the common things I agree with here, especially with Phil at Thraben, after doubling down on no format changes, the August BNR update needs to be literally perfect. Morale and faith in organized play are low, and if the update does not truly fix formats, and that might require more than just you know, the low-hanging fruit, I expect permanent damage. And we can kind of expect this from what's happened with Pioneer over the years. There was, you know, the old inverter decks that have been, you know, for those of you that have been playing Constructed Magic for a while, heck, Pioneer for a while, you know what happened with Inverter Combo. Inverter Combo and Thassa's Oracle was taking over the Pioneer metagame by storm. It was the single best deck for months. And this was happening during the COVID kind of lockdown area where not a lot of paper was being played. So in combination with that and the inverter situation, no one was playing Pioneer. Pioneer was a dead format. And over over the years, they've managed to revive it. A lot of people are playing Pioneer. It's an official RCQ format. We are just finishing the season for that. So a lot of people are excited to play a format like that, and we can see that repaired over time. But there's going to be some long-term permanent damage, especially for the Legacy community, which is really unfortunate. A community that doesn't see, you know, we're not going to see an RCQ format based around Legacy because the logistics are insane, considering the fact that the Legacy format has the legality of the reserve list. That would be a PR nightmare. They would never do it, but it's a format that has a lot of cult following. It's big on MTGO, and it's one of the most front-facing constructed formats out there, second or third probably to Modern, Pioneer, whatever it might be. So there is probably going to be some lack of trust, but I think a lot of the Legacy stalwarts out there, they're good at Legacy, will continue to play it, but maybe not as many casuals will continue to play it if they see these long-term play patterns play out. And we'll see this mistrust go into Pioneer, into Modern, and as mentioned, into some of the arena formats. But I think in general, something needs to be done. If it was up to me, I think something would be great. It would be great if something was done soon, but I think it's kind of unfortunate that they're pushing it out and they're standing down to their ground, because I understand why. I get you. As someone who works in corporate as well, for their full-time job, I get it. It's all about showing face, you know, being politically correct with your wording, all that business good stuff. It's just kind of unfortunate that it has to affect the play experience for all of us.